Hey, y'all, and welcome back to Dr. Mandy Unedited, the podcast where we decode academic writing and we demystify research. My name is Dr. Mandy, and I'm your new unofficial PhD advisor, y'all. Okay, so this week I'm going to talk about how to stay motivated in your PhD program. Now, I'm going to start unifying my topics across my podcast and my TikTok. So, if you need some more tips on research and writing throughout the week, make sure that you go follow me on at Life with Dr. Mandy on TikTok. But let's go ahead and get into it because, if I start to goss today, I'm just going to talk about how ridiculous the weather is again, and I cannot make myself talk about it anymore because I have sat here for the last 2 weeks watching it rain, shine in the space of like 5 seconds. So let's talk about how to stay motivated during your PhD program. So I know the PhD journey is intense, y'all. It will question your sanity. It will question your abilities to do anything. And probably at some point you will not want to continue your PhD. So I wanted to share some things with you today that I discovered through my PhD journey that can really help you build the momentum to get through. So yeah, you can count this bit as the goss if you want to, but just for some context, as you may or may not know, I spent a lot of my life thinking that I was stupid, that I was unintelligent, and really my whole academic journey has just been me trying to claw tooth and nail to, I don't know, just prove myself. For some reason in my head, I come from a family of academics, and so I've always just really tried to prove myself because all of these people also have PhDs. When I was a kid, a lot of my family members were gifted and I couldn't pass a test. And yeah, really getting to the point of being able to do a PhD for me was very, very shocking, but also really, I just thought, I did the bare minimum to try to get here, and let's just see if I could do it. But plot twist, pursuing a PhD actually has made me like more confident than I have in my entire life. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share a couple of things with y'all that really amped up that confidence for me. And yeah, has not only helped me finish my PhD really, really strongly, but has also taught me a lot of really valuable tools to getting into the research world as well. And I mean, not even only that, but just like in my personal life, it's taught me how to be so much more confident in interacting with people and all that good stuff. So, the first thing I want to talk to you about is something I like to call the season of the nose. This basically means that for the past few years, I've been practicing just asking questions because I'm telling myself that the worst thing that someone could respond is just simply no. And I think in life in general that we kind of get so worried about doing things. Like, ask yourself, how many times do you just like not do something because you're like worried about somebody's reaction, right? Like you're not asking things because you're afraid of rejection. However, like, you have to start twisting your mind to think, well, how bad is that really going to be? If somebody says no, then okay, like, it sucks for a second. Let's move on. Is someone saying no to your request really going to end your world? So I started doing this during my data collection phase of my PhD. And so, as you may or may not know, I was doing my PhD setting online. I was studying the success of collaborative leadership and homeschool co-ops. I've talked a lot about that in the past, so you can check out some of my previous episodes to know more about what exactly I did in my research. But yeah, so the focus was going to be leaders in homeschool co-ops. And so, although I actually knew people in homeschool co-ops, I made the very scary decision to not contact them as potential participants because I felt that, they didn't really provide enough variation of to really get like the authentic picture of what success looked like in homeschool co-ops. So basically, I really wanted to look for participants from various, different kind of co-ops, religious co-ops, non-religious co-ops, community-based, farm-based, and whatever else I could find. I think really what I'm trying to get at is that I knew a lot of people from more like religious affiliated homeschool co-ops, which is great, but I think that there are so many other reasons that people choose to not only like homeschool their kids, but facilitate and grow these homeschool co-op groups as well. And so I just really wanted to make sure I had a really good variation of different types of people with different types of purposes for, choosing to be leaders in co-ops. So I knew that this meant I would have to probably scour the internet for participants that I didn't know. I didn't know how I was going to get them. I didn't know where they were. And, I had been dreading this point my entire PhD journey because I was so sure that this was going to be the point where I really stalled in my dissertation. I was so sure, I've talked about before that I am a two-time, school dropout. I dropped out once in university and then I dropped out once in graduate school. And I thought for sure this was going to be the third time is the charm, is when I got to the recruitment phase because I was just not sure if I had the guts to actually recruit people, you know what I mean? But yeah, I started thinking like this kind of like season of the no mindset. So that meant that like I was going to have to reach out to a billion people, just cold messaging, cold emailing, and the worst thing that they could do is just say no, and then I would have to just move on. So that's what I did. And so when I did the recruitment online, I joined a bunch of Facebook groups. I use Google, like as they teach you to search for different words in research engines for things like your literature review. I use different words to search for, any kind of homeschool group, homeschool co-op. The term can be very fluid. And so then yeah, I just had to like pull up my bootstraps and I started to probably send out, 100 cold messages and emails every day, which was so hard to do. And it took hours to, sometimes just try to find new leads, new potential avenues. So there were some points where I was getting emails back from people that were like, "Hey, I haven't been involved in this homeschool co-op for like 10 years." They still had their email posted on the website as like a leader, you know what I mean? So there was all of these like funky elements and like things that I was like, "Ooh, I'm afraid of happening." But at the end of the day, I started telling myself, "Is this the worst thing that I got rejected because somebody had their email still posted on the website for 10 years?" No, it's not. I was worried, people would start to get upset with me or think that I was too spammy. Definitely, like on Facebook, there's a lot of groups that have a lot of rules about, advertising or, cold emailing people in the group. So that took a lot of time to kind of read through and make sure I wasn't violating any rules. And I did get a lot of responses, unfortunately, from, various Facebook groups that said, "Hey, like, we don't accept research during this time." And again, that was just another learning point for me to say, is this the worst thing in the world? I got rejected for that. No, it's not. We got other things to do. Let's move on. So, even though I did a bunch of, no's and unanswered emails, I still found that practicing the season of the no's was consistently getting me participants at the end of the day. And something that I thought was going to take me months and months to do, like every day I was waking up and I was so miserable at having to like go find new places to email people at. I actually ended up getting enough participants and collecting all my data in under 6 weeks was like, thank God when that was done, you know what I mean? So this was something that I still use today as a researcher and as someone who has moved to a new country and has to navigate a new workforce culture in research. So yeah, if you don't know, I moved from the US to the UK during my PhD journey, which was also a wild element to it. But practicing the season of the nose has really helped me get up to speed in this new workforce, get up to speed as like a new researcher in this community, in this area, because I just asked questions and I wasn't afraid to not be answered or not be replied to or someone to say no. So now I would consider myself in a place that I like to now call the season of the yes, which means now I'm practicing saying yes to the things that scare me. Again, navigating a new career as a researcher can be a challenge. Getting a job in research can be tough. Doing all the presentations and the conferences and the meetings can be really scary. However, I found that when I just started saying yes to any opportunity that came my way, I started really being seen and then I started being asked to do more stuff. So, to put it into context for you, when I started working in the UK as a researcher for the first time, my first role was literally a 5 month contract that was about 10 hours a week in research. And now, from that one contract, because I just started saying yes to everything, because I started not being afraid to say or to hear no from my colleagues when I'm sharing my ideas. That short little 5 month contract has kept me employed full time for the most part for the last 2 years. And now I'm in a position where, yeah, I'm still saying yes to everything. I'm in on all of these different projects. I'm busy as heck all the time, but now I am pretty much going to be set to be employed for the next 2 or 3 years. So, if you are listening from the US, research can be a little bit different in the UK. There's not really any like tenure track, and for the most part, yeah, like it is short term, temporary, if you will, contracts. So you do have to kind of keep the momentum going to be able to keep working, basically. So, anyway, I encourage all of you that are in your PhD journey, and this is what I also say to my coaching clients as well, to just start saying yes to things, even if it scares you. So, go to meetings that you're invited to, even if you have no idea what they're about. I do this all the time. I go to meetings in fields that, like, I have no idea and what the heck they're talking about, but I still go to them. I still meet people. I volunteer to do presentations, even though, I don't know. I used to be a singer and a performer, and I used to perform all the time. But now that I had kind of gotten out for it for a while, I kind of got a little bit of stage fright. So doing presentations is not like my favorite thing to do anymore, but I still volunteer to do them all anyway. And yeah, now I've got, a lot of eyes on me. I've got people constantly asking me to, check out new projects, new ideas. And at the end of the day, this is how people will start to know you are the one to look for. So now let's talk a little bit about how to keep the momentum and the motivation through your PhD program going. Because the idea of the season of the yeses and the seasons of the nos, these are concepts that you'll have to learn over time, but there are little things that you can start to do to really start to build confidence in yourself in the short term, you know what I mean? So stop looking at the PhD like it is one big thing to overcome, all right? start celebrating the little things, even if they seem really stupid. So one of the things that really amped me up is when I started to again going back to the whole like participant recruitment story that I feared so much. One of the things that I started to do was celebrate every little victory in that era. So like every time I sent an email, do a little happy dance. That was a success. I told my husband every single day, "Oh my God, I sent 20 emails today," or whatever, Every time I got a confirmation, that was a success. And so the next thing I would really encourage you to do is make this success like physical or visual, right? So what I did during my recruitment era was I made a little thermometer, like those ones that people use to like track fundraising and stuff for schools. But on the side, I actually wrote doctor by December because that was my goal. I wanted to defend my dissertation by December of that year. And so I had the little thermometer and I put a little slot for like every participant. And every time I got a new participant, I filled it in a little bit in the thermometer. So you wouldn't believe how excited I started to get over like every time I got to pull out the little red paint marker and fill in a new slot. Like that little dopamine hit was like so exciting to me, and it really drove me forward to do the next bit and to do the next bit. And I found that like once I got through with the data collection, that momentum in me, that excitement and that confidence like bled into like the next steps. It kept going, right? So like then the next step was analysis, and I'm like, okay, how can I celebrate, things, a little accomplishments here? So, just celebrating learning a new analysis program or learning how to make new little connections between different ideas, or celebrating just writing a few paragraphs of the results section. Those things, I started viewing them as successes, and I find like viewing successes in little chunks really helped me drive my excitement so much that instead of, I said I wanted to defend in December, I actually defended on October 30th. And that was like 2 months ahead of my deadline. And really the original deadline that I had, it was just kind of like a wishful thinking dream. But really driving myself through those little things instead of viewing this PhD as this giant hurdle to overcome made me so much more efficient. It made me so much more energized. And I just got the dang thing done. So overall, look, I know the imposter syndrome can be real. I know that burnout seems overwhelming, but the trick is to start retraining your mind in these funky little ways, you know what I mean? So, once you stop being afraid to ask questions, once you stop being afraid to put yourself out there, once you start celebrating the little silly wins, no matter how small, you're gonna be surprised how much stronger you feel in this journey. So that's all I got to say about that this week, y'all. I was just feeling pumped up. I know a lot of us have just started a PhD journey, it being September, or you're starting a new year or semester of your journey. And I just really wanted to take a second to, I guess, pretend or maybe successfully give you some wisdom and some knowledge. But in the meantime, if you want some little tidbits, I do talk more on TikTok about research and writing, so make sure you go check me out on at Life with Dr. Mandy. Doctor is just DR, and Mandy is spelled Mandie. I don't know why that was like the NBC sound jingle, but hey, John Williams, sponsor me, I guess. And yeah, make sure that you follow along because I will be doing some exciting things in the future. I am working on some courses for you guys. I also have a Padlet that you can find at in the link tree in my description. You can find it there, or if you're on the TikTok, you can click the link at the top of my bio. I have all all of the resources that you would love to have, I guess, for formatting, writing, research, even some stuff. I'm neurodivergent. I've got a lot of stuff on there for neurodivergent, spicy learners. But in the meantime, if you do need some help, you can reach out to me for some editing. I do coursework, I do journal articles, I also do dissertations, proposals, thesis, all that good junk. If it's academic, I edit it. And you can get a hold of me for that through my website, www.drmandyedits.com, or you can email me at mandykf@gmail.com. So that's MANDIE, kangaroo foxtrot at gmail.com. In the meantime, be sure that you go outside and avoid the rain today. Hopefully, I don't know. But I'll talk to y'all later. Okay, see you. Bye.